Hello. In this video, I would like to discuss the grading scale that I use for assigning some sort of measure to how well I speak a particular language. And I decided on a 100-point scale that has already been developed and used by Professor Arguelles, who is a very prominent polyglot on YouTube. Well, as I said, his grading scale, which I've adopted to use for my own language abilities, is based on a 100-point scale. And although he describes on his website how he explains it, I find that his definitions don't exactly work for me, because I don't know anywhere near as many languages as he does, and I don't know any languages as well as he does. So, with that said, I'm sure you've seen, or you can see on my YouTube channel, that I assume a level of 100 for English, my native language, and I base all my other language experience on that level. So, for example, I currently grade myself in Spanish as a 56 and in French as a 4. Yeah, I just started learning French. Anyway, scores in the zeros represent the breakthrough level. At this level, I have basically no knowledge of the language. I can possibly read it or pronounce it with a very heavy accent or reading it very slowly. But I can't understand what I'm reading. And I know maybe a few words of the language. So a language that would fit in this group for me is maybe French or Finnish. Languages that are in the tens represent that I'm beginning to learn some of the grammar of the language. I'm beginning to learn a little bit about how it fits together, what its sentence structure is, and so on. And I'm beginning to learn some very basic vocab. A language that is in this stage for me is probably German. With scores in the 20s, I can read very basic passages, very short basic passages, and I can translate them for the most part. I can get a gisted translation of it. And I can write the language and express myself through writing on a very basic and rudimentary level. And I can understand and form very crude, simple sentences in the language. And a language for me that is at this stage is probably Dutch. It's in the 20s. With a score in the 30s, that corresponds to a continued improvement in an understanding of the grammar, more knowledge of especially the nouns and the verbs in the language. A lot of languages, as I'm sure you know, have cases for their nouns, where their nouns change form depending on their grammatical function within the sentence, and a lot of their verbs conjugate or change their ending to show exactly what person they're in or what tense they're in. So a language that's in the 30s for me is probably Russian. With a score in the 40s, I am getting to a level where I'm beginning to understand a lot of the basic and intermediate level grammar of the language. I'm still not familiar with idiomatic expressions or slang, and I can't understand hidden meaning, but it's a basic functional level to be able to read something on a basic adult level with a dictionary, and it'll be a very slow process, but I think I would understand most of the grammar. And I'm continuing to expand my vocabulary at that time as well. I don't really have any languages that are in the 40s, I would say, mainly because I just, English I know better than that, of course. I know Spanish better than that level, and all my other languages I haven't gotten to that level yet. I consider, once I get into the 50s level, I consider myself to be in the intermediate stage of language learning. With a score in the 50s, I've mastered most of the intermediate level grammar, pretty much all of the basic, most of the intermediate level grammar, and I have an adequate functional vocabulary. I can hold a lengthy general conversation with someone via texting or chatting on anything, Skype, MSN, Yahoo, you name it. But I can't participate in any kind of in-depth discussion about anything. My vocabulary base is not to that level yet. I can understand native speakers of the language if they speak slowly, but a lot of times I still can't pick out the accents, and I can't really understand them if they go very fast. I can hold a very basic conversation with someone who speaks that language, but overall I'm not at a fluent level yet. And I would say that my Spanish is somewhere between this level and the next level, which is in the 60s. A score in the 60s means that my vocabulary has expanded into certain in-depth subjects, to where, yes, I can hold a general conversation with someone, but I can also go into an in-depth discussion with somebody about something, such as politics, or weather, or geography, or anything. Gardening, cooking, you name it. And I'm beginning to more thoroughly understand native speakers, and this is how I am in Spanish right now. The score in the 70s, I can read textbooks, maybe, without much difficulty. I'm not quite to the level of being able to understand any of the great books of literature or anything like that in the target language, but I'm almost to that level. At this point, I would focus mainly on listening to the language via maybe radio stations or having conversations with people and continuing to just try to expand my vocabulary as much as possible, because by this point, I've pretty much fully grasped most of the grammar that I would find in a book. With a score in the 80s, I can converse almost naturally with a native speaker. I might trip up every now and then, but for the most part I don't really have much difficulty expressing myself. I can tackle books in the target language with effort, dedication, a lot of time, and a dictionary. And it'll be a slow and arduous process, but I think I would be able to read it and get as much out of it as I could if it was written in English, provided that I put enough time and effort into it and I have the dictionary with me. With a score in the 90s, I've basically mastered the language almost. I can talk with native speakers naturally about pretty much anything to any degree of depth, and I can read books that are targeted for adults in the target language without much difficulty. I might still need a dictionary every now and then, because I might every now and then come across a word that I don't know. But for the most part, I can hold my own in the language completely. I would feel completely comfortable going to a country that speaks the language and conversing with the native speakers there. I would feel comfortable teaching that language to somebody else, and I would feel comfortable completely immersing myself in that language and living that language, so to speak. I see that my video is getting lengthy, and I'm sorry guys, this video, I meant it to be about 5 minutes, but I'm a very long-winded person, so I will sign off for now, and I wish everyone luck in their language studies, and feel free to message me on YouTube if you have any questions. Thanks for watching. Bye.